Welcome back to another episode of the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Willert, and I'm sitting here with Pastor Stephen Mannion, Pastor Mike Wigglesworth, and we got Bradley, the man with the redacted last name, no last name here, our producer on the board. How you guys doing?
I'm good.
That was a really enthusiastic.
Yeah, man.
intro.
I don't know if it's the coffee we're drinking, but
Coffee's amazing.
I have
It's the best coffee
I
I've
am
had.
hyped today for some strange reason. I have no idea why.
More than normal?
More than normal.
The hand gestures is what got it for me.
Yeah, you got. I went real. I'm not Italian, but I
went
went
full
real
Italian.
Italian right now. But yeah, we have a great and special guest speaker for you guys today. But before we go ahead and bring him on, let's do a quick introduction to the coffee that we are drinking. There it is. We are drinking Orange Cat Coffee Company. It's a little quaint shop located out in Lewiston, New York. Now, there's not an About Me page, guys, but let me do a quick story on what happened. Sarah, my fiance, had a bachelorette party where she rented a cabin for a few days with some of her bridesmaids, and they found this really small coffee shop out in Lewiston, and a whole wall of coffee, different flavors and smells, and she brought us back some for the podcast, and it is
sweet of her.
Fantastic.
It smells and tastes like cherry.
It tastes exactly like it smells. So you guys need to go to their Facebook page. They don't have a website, but their Facebook page called Orange Cat Coffee Company. We are drinking the Chipotle Amaretto. It's fantastic, and I suggest that you guys order it. That's the coffee. Now, today, our special guest
Chipotle
speaker,
amaretto. So it's like a burrito bowl
Yes.
and amaretto sour kind of mixed? Okay.
Yeah. So we have John Henry here with us in over Zoom, and we will be discussing the topic of critical race theory. Now, let me give you a little introduction to who John is. John Henry is a servant of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Originally from Haiti, John moved to the U.S. at about 18 years of age. He also recently just got married. Congratulations on
Yeah,
that.
congratulations.
And he's an engineer by trade.
Thank you.
He graduated from the School of Engineering of NYU with a BS in Electrical and Electronics Engineering. John is also a Reformed Christian YouTuber in his free time. He loves Jesus and continuous learning and growing in the Word of God. Last but not least, he opposes and hates CRT.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
everyone, give us a warm welcome to John Henry. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It was funny I believe a couple of weeks ago when I texted Steve to tell him that to apologize because I was a no-show. And he said, well, the guys believe that I forgot what you said. I hate or I don't like CRT or that proves something.
Yeah,
I forgot.
that proves that he actually supports CRT, I think Ryan said.
Yeah, he's coming on here to say how much he hates it and he doesn't show up. It's like, yeah, there it is.
Got them.
Yeah.
But I'm doing great. It's an honor for me to be here with you guys, and I've had opportunities before. It's just I've always been, trying to get myself off of the spotlight. It's not really about me. I'm just kind of like the guy in the background and working things out. And I after speaking to, I believe, to Steve via email, a few correspondences, and I said, okay, you know what? It's a day to start, a day to start something, a day to take on a new opportunity. I said, no worries, and I'll try it out. And his approach was good. And the link, I listened to some of the content you guys had, and it's an honor for me to be here.
Well, thanks. It's good to have you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I discovered John Henry. I don't even know how. I watch YouTube videos.
What is your YouTube? You might as well give a quick shout out for advertising. Tell us a little about your YouTube page.
Yeah. So last year, the way that it all started, last year, 2020, I noticed in the evangelical world there was really one guy. There are other people, but there was really one guy that was kind of like being highlighted in the news when you you've kind of like found everybody had their churches closed. Nobody was talking about anything. Nobody was really talking about what was happening in the media and everything. And I found that John MacArthur was just like the only guy and just going at it. And I said, you know what? Maybe I should probably try and share some of his messages. Now, when I started sharing his messages, and then that took on a different form, and then with everything that happened, to make a story short, last year, with the whole Black Lives Matter movement and everything, and I started to dig in a little bit more into it. And then that's pretty much what was the inception of the channel. Then, you post things, you don't know who's watching at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then it started gaining traction. So
now he has 95,500 subscribers.
Wow.
Nice.
Man.
and it's been like probably seven months.
Jeez.
Not even a year yet. 7 or 8 months now. November of this year is going to be 1 year. So yeah. It's I'm just as surprised as everybody else.
Well, I'm kind of honored because John Henry he only shows a picture of himself on his channel. He never actually, you hear his voice, but he never actually you never see his face. Which says a lot about you, I think, because you don't, like you said, you don't want to be the face. But what he does is he'll play. A lot of times he'll address different issues that are important to the church, like false teachers and like including critical race theory inching its way into the church, and he'll show some pastors who are heading in that direction, Matt Chandler and David Platt and some of these guys, and then he'll go over to, he'll have them say something, and he goes over to like Voddie Baucham and MacArthur and Paul Washer and some of these guys, basically addressing that same point from a more biblical point of view. Right. And so it's really enlightening. And sometimes his editing is hilarious, because sometimes he'll have somebody say something like that's like really bad, and then he'll go instantly to Voddie Baucham, like with his face like, like his face like, what are you talking about? It's so funny. It makes me laugh.
That's funny.
Yeah, so it's great to have you on, and you obviously have a lot of episodes on your show about this, so people, you can go and check those out about critical race theory. It's something that right now really is catching traction, inching its way into the church, and I know that we want to talk about language, because a lot of their trick is using language that we all like Bradley said, like justice, and where of course I'm against racism. I'm anti-racist. They use this language and kind of trick you into it. So, could you just start by just giving just a real basic definition? I know it's kind of hard to do this, but what is critical race theory?
Well, it's to make it a little bit more practical. It's really reverse racism. That's all it is. Yeah. It's you did this to us, and the way that the you is translated here, it's you right now. Actually, you, not your ancestors, not your great grandparents, or maybe somebody remotely related to you. You did this to us, or you are the representative of the ones that did this to us. And the us is not really us. It's, the us way back. You did this to us, and now it's our time to do this back to you. That's what critical race theory is all about. And if you followed Voddie Baucham, critical race theory stems from critical theory, and critical theory stems from this Marxist ideology, where you have the proletariat and the people on top. So it's the oppressors versus the oppressed. It's just putting people into groups. And with critical race theory, it was more so social and financial. With critical race theory, that race is the qualifier. It's skin color. And have videos of Voddie Baucham defining from a biochemical standpoint that, your skin color, we all different shades of the same color. So if you're trying to do this based on skin color, it's purely superficial. doesn't exist. You're white, I'm black, he's yellow, she's red. It doesn't really exist. It's all made up. So that's what critical race theory is all about. And it's the reason why it's so ingrained, and Vodi Bakum has been talking about it for years.
Yeah, he has.
For years. Even myself didn't know that he's been talking about it for years. There's a very well-known a sermon of Vodi Bakum called "The Supremacy of Jesus Christ." You guys have probably heard of it. It's very popular. It's sometimes people took like snippets of it and then just they make like sermon jam, put music under it. If you listen to the full sermon, Vodi Bakum, actually, that was back in probably 1990 or 1992.
Wow, okay.
Vodi Bakum addressed that. So that's pretty much what critical race theory is about. It's reverse racism. And it's reverse racism, reverse active racism. You can't really say that you are an anti-racist. You have to be actively an anti-racist.
Yeah.
And for what you think being an anti-racist is, it's not what it really means. So it's a lot.
So what? Sorry. What makes those people who think critical race theory is something that we should follow? What makes them think that the idea of let me put this simply. What makes them think that we should logically stand in as a representation for those of the past? I don't see how it follows. What are they thinking when it comes to you're going to be the representation of someone 3 centuries ago or whatever it might be? Why do they think that logically follows that I can be that?
Okay. I was kind of refraining from being on here because I knew you guys were going to ask me very technical questions. I'm going to try my best to
absolutely
wiggle my way through this. But if you need in-depth in-depth analysis of this, I have multiple videos on my channel that goes in depth. But having, I've been putting these videos together, so I kind of like cut some things here and there. Right. I retain some things here and there. So the reason why you should be, and I should be the representative of those that were enslaved in the past, and you should be the representative of those that were the oppressors of the past, is because what happened in the past didn't stop in the past, right? So I'm not a historian by any means, but after the Civil War happened, and we had no more slaves, there were some snippets of it, some variations of it until the Civil Rights Movement, until back, let's say 10 to 12 years ago, we actually had a Black president, for 2 terms. So the reason why you should be, now let me answer the question, you should be, it's because it didn't just stay in the past. It's been institutionalized
in the systems, hence the term systemic racism.
So that's the term, systemic racism. So if it's systemic, then there needs to be federal heads of the oppressors and federal heads of the oppressed to continue that same system. So who are the oppressed? Black people. Who are the oppressors? White people. Who's the most hated person in America right now? It's a white male Christian person.
Heterosexual.
Heterosexual, white male, heterosexual, cisgender Christian person. So you're at the bottom right now. That's the reverse. So that's the reason why you should be. You might not be asking for it. You might just be a guy who just wake up every morning, kiss your wife and your kids goodbye. You go to work, you go back and go about your business. You come on here, do your show, hang out with your friends, go to church and come back. You might not have anything to do with it, but for some reason, that theory, that way of thinking, that worldview puts you by default based on the color of your skin in that category, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're just a racist from that standpoint.
Right. Can I go ahead?
Yeah.
Before we get any further, John, I wanted to ask you, how would you define racism? So we're all on the same page, because nowadays words all of a sudden have this different meaning. Like violence isn't me attacking you or striking you with like a rod.
Saying mean words.
It's saying mean words. It's
microaggression.
Not supporting your political beliefs or religious beliefs at all. that's violence now. So what is the definition of racism that you're going by?
Yeah, so from a biblical standpoint, with racism, it's hate. We don't have to put an ism behind it. It's hate. It stems from sin. Every single person on earth, you are a descendant of Adam. By virtue of that, you are a sinful person. So it's not less of any other sin. It's not less of any of the other sins Paul listed in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9, 10. And then where Paul says, such were some of you, but now you have been washed.
Right.
So racism, it's pretty much hate. So now that hate, it has a qualifier. Somebody could hate you for having a nice car. Somebody could hate you for having a nice job. Somebody could hate you for, I don't know, for having a wonderful podcast. People can hate people for anything. But this hate, it's classified, in this. People just hate you just because of the way you look. People hate people for, the way their nose look, but people hate people because of their color of their skin. And some people think, that has to do with your character, and based off of that, they think that you're inferior to them. So it's simply hate.
Yeah.
And that needs to be dealt with from a biblical standpoint, a theological standpoint.
Yeah, I appreciate that definition, because we've had a few people where they offered up definitions and I didn't like it because it seems you can give an example where their definition fails.
Sure.
Yeah, so a lot of times they have this idea of power. You must be in power, where it seems I can provide an example of someone who has no power,
Who is
racist, and it seems to me, since things they could say, you would want to qualify as racism, even though they're in no position of power. So I think power is involved, and sin with power can make racism even more strong. But I like the idea of it's degrading and hating, almost like this intrinsic value of someone with the qualifier of skin color.
That's just your whiteness talking, Ryan.
Yeah. And the way it fails, it usually, I try, as you can see, I try and not bring politics into the the YouTube channel itself. But it's very difficult right now not to. Politics has pretty much invaded our sphere of thinking. Mm-hmm. It has invaded Christianity as a whole, the evangelical world.
Absolutely.
Some people would argue. You try and make that point, but to be honest with you, I don't really know how. Somebody. I don't want to be. If I'm going to be all over the place, just remind me, guys. So what I have a point to make, but I just want to make that point first before I go back to that point. It's very difficult to not have be talking about Christ and be on the in the evangelical world and not talk about politics, because it's pretty much invaded our world. Mm-hmm. Politicians are now defining what morality is, what's moral and what's not moral. And as a Christian, you have to address that. So to go back to your point, and with the definition of racism, people on the left, they'll tell you that if you are Black, you cannot be racist. It's entirely and inherently something that belongs to someone that is white. In other words, if you go back to my definition, only a white person can really hate somebody with a different shade, of a color, of a skin color, and a Black person can never be, hateful in that way, which is false. I know people who are openly, I call them Black supremacists. Mm-hmm. That's who they are. You hear them on radio shows. They're Black supremacists. They criticize Black men for marrying a white woman, white women for marrying Black men. They're Black supremacists. The hate is so spiteful, and it's undeniable. So people on the left will tell you that, when I say people on the left, this has different variations now these days. Liberals, super liberals, and they'll tell you they'll have their own definition of racism, and they will tell you on top of that I'm a Black person, I cannot be racist. So that fails again, because it's hate. And anybody can hate.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to hear, because I wanted to make sure that we got that out of the way, because CRT defines racism as if you're white, you automatically are the racist. Even if you fight racism, you're still racist. If you try to not be racist, if you're anti-racist, you're still racist.
Yeah.
If you're not anti-racist, you're racist. So there's no way to get redemption.
That's why they say you have to do the work of anti-racism, because you're constantly trying to justify to dig yourself out of this hole you can't ever dig yourself out of.
Yeah, and that's the reason why you could see, I'm a young guy and I have these older gentlemen on my channel. I'm not necessarily too thrilled, about picking, young guys and feature them on my channel. It's because I've seen a pattern when these new ideologies are making their way through the world, and especially in the church. These older gentlemen, men like Stephen Lawson, John MacArthur, Voddie Baucham, they take time, sit down, and analyze what's happening. And I felt like when David Platt and Matt Chandler and these other guys, I think amongst all of these guys, these names I've mentioned, and you have Tabby T also, and you have a bunch of other people part of TGC, the Gospel Coalition, that have hopped on this bandwagon. When that idea came to them, they embraced it without analyzing what's happening. They've not only embraced it, they embraced it fully, and without looking into it deeper. I'm pretty sure a lot of them didn't know that this came from Germany, from the Frankfurt School of Germany. I'm pretty sure none of them, thought that, this has nothing to do with the gospel. I'm pretty sure none of them knew that. But what's even much more surprising to me, it's after Voddie Baucham has revealed what this is really and the history of it all, somebody like me, let's say, Stephen would see me post something and that's not entirely biblical, or that's completely unbiblical. He would probably give me a call. Hey, John, I saw that you posted something. I was just, trying to wonder why, and then he would give me biblical reasons why, I shouldn't be posting that. Me as a believer, I should, okay, that's another brother calling me now on something that I did. Let me sit down, take a few steps back and evaluate in the moment. Something like that happened to me. For instance, I did a video on a university that was being criticized for, their team. Their team was the college team was on, they were being bashed because they don't support homosexuality. They're not too inclusive and everything. But turns out the university is Oral Roberts, a false teacher. That's his university. That was part of that. And then after I did the video, it wasn't an endorsement for Oral Roberts, who was a false teacher. It was just me looking ahead what is of Christian universities, what are of them, the Christian colleges, a few years ahead, down the line, are they not going to be able to participate in anything anymore? So somebody said, okay, as long as I like the video and I like what you highlighted on there, but I didn't like the fact that you picked them, but they were the ones that were being discriminated against. You picked them, and then they gave me a background. I'm like, okay, I can understand that. Maybe I should have picked another team, but they were the only team that was on there. So what's amazing to me is when David Platt and Matt Chandler, when they're looking at themselves acting that way, and in view of what critical race theory is really about, it's not about justice. It's not about Black people. It doesn't have anything to do with Black people. BLM, these guys embraced all of that. Doesn't have anything to do with Black people whatsoever. So now after seeing that, you should take a step back and said, you know what, I made a mistake. Maybe I should stop and, backtrack and then, recenter my church, in a different direction. It's not what's happening. It's crazy right now at McLean Bible's church.
Oh, I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we definitely appreciate the work that you're doing, John, and obviously we're seeing this rising tide of legalism on the left side, where it was on the more conservative side in previous years. So we're in this cultural stream now, where like we're dealing with critical race theory whether we want to or not, right?
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, can you tell us, like, how did we get here? Like, how did critical race theory land on America's doorstep, and how did we, as a culture, embrace it?
His name is Derek Bell, Harvard Law School professor. That's his name. His prodigy is Crenshaw. I forgot her first name. Christy, but Crenshaw, that's her last name.
Mm-hmm.
She developed intersectionality. Derek Bell was the one who introduced critical race theory at Harvard Law School. So somebody like Ibram X. Kendi will tell you, well, I'm not a legal, student. I wouldn't know anything about critical race theory. So it started at the universities, and that's pretty much how it branches out. Universities, when I was going first day in a university, they taught me that universities, the ground for thoughts. That's where ideas come from. That's where people go and learn ideas. It's great. You'll see that there was a video where Voddie Baucham tells you, if you're not part of a STEM program, which means if you're not in science, technology, mathematics, if you are in the arts, you are given a free lesson on critical race theory or critical theory somehow through psychology, through these soft science part of things. So if you were in that stream, then you were given that these ideas were being presented to, and it's for a long time.
I'm glad it's free for us. Thanks.
Yeah, free.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean,
doing us a favor. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. So and even looking back in the 80s and the 90s, some of the movies, some of the things that people used to say, subliminal messages, all of that ingrained in critical theory. Okay, women, we are oppressed by who? The men, the patriarchy. Well, we need to do something about it. We need to have women representation in engineering, women representation in coding, women representation in what else? In leadership, where in the church we need more women to learn theology to become pastors, right? So it's all stems from that. So it's when you backtrack it, you'll see that it's all unbiblical. Then really these ideas, they come from the pit. That's where they come from, really, the pit. But how did we get here? It's because it's been spoon-fed to us for so many years that now anybody, if you were to say that you are anti-social justice, people will call you, yes, you would be, because you're white and you're racist, without even thinking why you are anti-social justice, because social justice is not really about social justice.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
One of the things I appreciate about Voddie Baucham is the attention to history and how he shares in the fact that like a lot more than just white people were involved with slavery and things such of that nature.
I mean,
enslaved people.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad.
Even like back in like the British days, the Britons enslaved the English. Like it worked both ways.
Yeah.
So it was white people enslaving white people. It wasn't just always white people enslaving black people.
Well, also too, he mentions in his one YouTube thing I was talking about how there were large groups of African Americans in power that helped the slave trade as well, and brought the slaves over to this country.
Same thing that happened with Haiti. Haiti was the first black. It is the first free black republic in the world. Well, how that happened? Well, when African slave owners, sold slaves, to the Spaniards, and they came here with them. It wasn't white people in Africa that owned slaves and that sold them and shipped them across the Atlantic Ocean. It was black people that did that.
Yeah. John, I was just going to agree with you too. Like, the fact that like I'm a full-time student. So I definitely see critical race theory and like these subliminal messages being pushed. Sometimes on like a daily basis, like there's I got an email, I think it was like about a month ago, and it was top 10 ways to be to promote anti-racism in your school. And it's like, even in like my classes, like there's like like I did 2 English classes recently, and both the English classes I couldn't promote conservative ideas in those classes, and not even just conservative but Christian ideals in these classes, and like just like you couldn't talk about religion unless it was promoting black people, and just like small stuff like that.
Good. Christianity should work then.
Yeah. but like just like small messages like that, like promoting women's rights, which most people can get behind. It's just when you get behind it, you don't realize how far it goes.
Right.
Yeah, and even there, it spirals down so fast that that's what happened to these guys, David Platt, Matt Chandler, and all the Gospel Coalition. None of them knew that was what's going to happen. They said, "Oh, okay, we're going to talk for justice. We're going to do this and that," and then things got from 0 to 100 real quick. If you want to promote women's rights, yeah, sure, let's promote it. And as soon as you start saying, well, okay, if I'm promoting women's rights, then you need to be a biological woman for me to advocate for you. Oh no, you're a racist. What about trans women? So you see, even it's self implodes. Yeah. There's no real ground to base these things off of. It's all based on feelings, lust, and whatever you think, whatever you feel, and it's nothing is concrete.
Totally
everything is subjective. Everything is subject to change. There's no objectivity there, and you don't want to be in the realm of subjectivity, and there's no objectivity whatsoever, and that's dangerous because if there's no objectivity, then there's no truth.
Correct.
If there's no truth, then what are we doing exactly?
Yeah, exactly.
So the question I want to make sure we ask in our time is I think it's the most important question about this is how is critical race theory contrary to the gospel of Jesus Christ, or how is it dangerous to the gospel of Jesus Christ?
It's dangerous because it makes, let's say, for instance, the tenets of critical race theory were true, right? Okay, let's say they were true. So okay, it's fine, they're true. But what it stands for says that you are utterly and completely unredeemable, pretty much.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. So that sentence in 1 Corinthians 6:11, that says, such were some of you. That can never be said about you, if you're white. That can never be said about you ever.
You can't be sanctified.
There's no justification for you. You cannot be. In other words, the blood of Christ is not powerful enough to wash you pure of hate. The blood of Christ is not powerful enough and can never and will never be powerful enough to wash sin, the sin of racism, away from your heart.
Right.
If they would even tell you, like somebody, somebody like Hitler is, we don't care if this guy really repented, if he were alive, really repented and decided to follow Christ, get baptized or whatever, really repented of his sin. No, there's no savior for this guy. Jesus is not enough. Right. So that's to me, that's the breaking point. That's what undergirds their argument. That seemed to undergird the argument, and that's why it's contrary to the gospel.
And it messes with the eschatology too, because correct me if I'm wrong, I'm still going to be white in the afterlife, like in the new heavens and new earth. If I am still white, not only is it impossible for redemption, it is logically impossible for God to make us perfect.
Right,
Good luck with that. You know what I mean?
doesn't get the problem right either. If you don't agree on what the problem is, you're not going to arrive at the same solution. So
Correct.
if it's ultimately a problem of skin color, like you said, there's nothing that I can change about that. There's nothing redeemable about that. But if the root problem is my heart, and that my heart, my nature, my sin nature needs to be transformed into the likeness of Christ, then I am redeemable. And when people talk about systemic racism and systemic structures that need to change, in some measure, I agree with them, because sinners occupy the places of power in those structures. But whether they're white, whether they're black, whether they're yellow,
We're all
it's not-
sinners.
We're all sinners. It doesn't matter.
But that's a good point, because that brings a clear distinction between the system and the people of the system. If racism is hate, mathematics and balance sheets can't hate. It is the people behind it that hate. So what that tells me is the system can't do it. It's the person's worldview behind it that is involved within the racism. So just to say it's the system, I don't think it comprehends how racism actually works, in my opinion.
The argument also fails when you look at it from an objective standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, let's take police shooting, right?
Right.
You look at numbers. Now, it's not somebody talking or telling you, but what I feel, what I think. You just look at the numbers. You print out the papers and look at, how many white people were killed, unfortunate or intentionally or counterattack by the police, and how many black people. And you look at it, you see more white people, got killed than black people. Then you're like, how is the police racist? They'll tell you, they'll come up with another argument saying, no, it's not like that. It's 13% of us, it's more of you. Then you can't really look at it that way.
Yeah.
And you said, okay, well, then let's reverse the argument. Look, it's 13% of black people. Then 13% of black people from a statistical standpoint are responsible for 50% of the crimes in this country. So how do you balance it out?
Yeah.
It's always spiraling, around. So you made a very good point, Ryan, by saying, if you don't look at, was it Ryan or Mike?
Which one? I'm Ryan. Was it me?
Right, Mike.
Ah,
Yeah.
Mike made a good point.
Mike
Not
made
you,
a
Ryan.
good point.
Not the doctor.
Fail.
Yeah. It doesn't address the issue at the point where it's important.
Yeah.
None of us, if let's say I was born I was born blind. When we become what we're supposed to become in Christ, when we get our glorified body, I'm not going to be blind anymore. Even if I was missing a leg, I'm not going to be that anymore. So what we look like right now in this life, it's not what we're going to look like in the afterlife. When we get glorified, this issue of skin color, that's
not going to matter.
It's not going to
Yeah,
matter.
right.
Yeah.
It's not going to matter. In 2 Corinthians 5:17, doesn't seem to be of any effect in the critical race theory world.
No.
All things have passed and now all things are new. No, the old things have not passed. We need to address them, and you need to be put on that pedestal, and we need to judge you for it. And no amount of I'm sorry will ever really, wash that sin away. It will always be there. As a matter of fact, we're going to put them in our TV shows. Constantly, we're going to, keep pumping it out. It's more and more. Recently got a new job, and as part of the process, I had to go through this inclusion process. It's kind of like, all these, companies and organizations, they have this inclusion class now.
Yeah.
So where,
It's more fun.
where they bring multiple intersectional kind of group and tell you how you should be aware of that. So that's where we are. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, even to add on to your point too, like obviously we should be kingdom focused, but we also have to be focused on the world currently. And yes, currently right now we do have different skin colors, but critical race theory completely discounts the redemptive power of Jesus And so, like Galatians 3:28 says, there is neither Jew nor Greek nor slave nor free. There is no male, no female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. And that right there discounts all of critical race theory, which states that you are white, you are racist.
Doesn't it say in there except whitey?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like the Bible keeps going against critical race theory in the sense that critical race theory says that you cannot be redeemed, you cannot be saved, whereas the Bible sits there and says, hey, look, in Christ you were all one. You shouldn't focus on the skin color in the church. You shouldn't focus on the position in the church. You should sit there and say, hey, we're both sinners and we are united by Christ.
Yeah. And the only distinction that God made in terms of racial distinction, it was a covenantal distinction, between Jews and Gentiles. That was a covenantal distinction, not really a distinction based on skin color. And when you move Ephesians 1, when you get to 2, 10, and 11 and continued, that dividing wall, Christ broke it. There's no more distinctions anymore. And going back now to your point, Bradley, Galatians 3:28, that wall is no longer, there's no Scythian, there's no Greek. We are all one in Christ. Of course, there are distinctions. There, we know that there's a male and that's a female, but from a spiritual standpoint, there's really no distinction. We are all one because we've been all bought by one Savior, Jesus Christ.
And there was real ethnic tension, you could call it like almost racism, between the Jews and the Gentiles.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
And within the Jewish community themselves, not just with Gentiles.
sure.
Samaritans and Jews.
With the new covenant, we are all one body. And so, there's differences between us. Like a hand isn't the same thing as a foot, and a nose isn't the same thing as, your ears. But we're all still a part of the body of Christ. We recognize the differences between us, but we don't focus on it.
Yeah, and when you're listening, and sometimes before I put these videos together, I sit down and really listen to someone's full point. I don't stop at 5 minutes. Okay, they said something, I need to get that. I listen to the entire sermon and to see where they're going. Some folks from the first 5 minutes, you understand their premise and they read a verse and then they go off of that, where they're gonna end.
Yeah.
If you listen to them, you'll see a lot of them, they qualify themselves. White pastor, white Christian, black church, white church. What is that? What's a black Christian? What's a white Christian? And multiple people have asked me that on YouTube as a comment. And then when I come back and give them answers, clear biblical answers, they never come back and reply. And I said, what is a white Christian?
Yeah.
What is a black Christian? Can you define that biblically for me?
Yeah, exactly.
They never come back.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
They never come back.
A lot of people focus on, like, they focus on their identity first rather than their Christianity. Like, if I were to say, I'm a
Use
white
their
male,
skin color as their identity.
exactly, and they sit there and they say, like, oh, I'm a Republican and then I'm a Christian, whereas it should be I'm a Christian and then everything else.
Right. So I have a few questions for you. I was thinking about this before you came on, and I just want to ask your opinion on some of these things. If you sort of, I don't want to say they're objections to some thoughts on this, but I'd be interested to hear your take on it. Do you see any of critical race theory that just begs the question? Because to me, it sort of assumes its conclusion to try to prove its conclusion. And I can give some examples of this. Like, for instance, if I were to go, hey, and this is and I'll give you another story of actually what happened to me. Basically, they would say, you can't think this way because you're white. And I'll be like, wait a minute, I agree with you. This system needs to be fixed. And I'm like, you just don't understand. I go, why don't I understand? Well, because you're white. And to me, that sort of like assumes this theory to just completely disregard it without even hearing me out.
You don't know what you don't know.
Do you see any of that happening?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the reason why I think I think, as you could see on YouTube, you'll see like a very few YouTubers, that are like ethnically Caucasian
Mhm.
talking about critical race theory. Why? Because it's just gonna be a pain for them.
Right.
The very first thing you'll hear, oh, you're just a racist, and
Yeah.
obviously
Mhm.
you'll
Yeah.
you'll you'll be against it because you're a racist. As opposed to me, if I talk about it, it's different,
Yeah.
you know, because I use their own argument. Since I can't be a racist, then you can't tell me I can't talk about it or I can't even go against it. I've never really had anybody saying that I was a racist. But if I were white and
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
posted the same videos, my comment sections would be filled. I'd get emails, and I'd probably, if they knew my cell phone, I'd get phone calls and
Yeah.
calling me a racist. So it's already predefined.
Yeah.
Everything is predefined. You already put in this category. There's no redemption for you.
Yeah.
You just and you don't know. You are racist. You just don't know that. And
Yeah.
there's different versions of it. For instance, me, the fact that I'm black, I have internalized racism. I just don't know that I have internalized racism. I've so internalized the white, ideologies that I don't know if I have it. So
Yeah.
I've internalized it so much now that I can't see, things clearly. I can talk against it.
Yeah.
So they have aversion racism. They have, all kinds of terms for them.
Mhm.
If you were to say, well, that doesn't make sense, they say, no, it makes sense. It's because you are white and you are so
Yeah.
into it.
It
And if it's a
assumes
black-
it assumes the answer already.
it assumes the answer already.
Absolutely.
They
It
don't-
begs the
they don't-
question. Yeah.
Even though
They-
it's
they
called a
don't have-
theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't have to prove.
Yep.
They don't have to prove anything. And
Yeah.
and back in the days, in university, you see people debate people on issues. You'll see like multiple debates on YouTube, for instance. Atheists versus a Christian. Proving their points. You'd have like two little stages. They would make their point, and then somebody else would make their point.
Yes.
Critical race theory. There's no debate. If you debate, it's because you're a racist.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
they figured all of it out and they shut down the conversation.
Yeah.
It's you come and you sit down and let me tell you how much of an oppressor you are. And now let me tell you what your place in this society is.
Yeah. So
That's it.
Yeah. Like I said, it sounds like the whole thing's undergirded by a
Yeah.
illogical fallacy.
Yeah.
By begging the
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Well, we can't talk about critical race theory without talking about, well, this is what you just described, John, is this term Vodi Bakum has called ethnic Gnosticism.
Mm.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this idea that the oppressed have some secret hidden knowledge, they have this experience that only they can hold. But
It's experiential truth. It's truth.
It's totally experiential truth. So my question is like, what are your thoughts on that when somebody comes to you and says, you just don't understand because I'm the oppressed, you're the oppressor. So how do you respond to that? And then my second question would be, what role does experience have in us understanding truth? Because I think there is some validity to it, but it has to be tempered by other forms of understanding.
It needs to be
truth.
true. Yeah.
It needs to be true. Yes.
Yeah. So let's start with the second. What was the second again?
What role does experience
What will
have?
experience? It doesn't. That was the point, the genesis point for me, talking about critical race theory. Here I am sitting down and then watching YouTube, and then I saw, David Platt saying that was a 2-minute clip. I had to find the full video to go through it. I was just sitting down and then going through my phone, and then I saw this video. I was like, oh, okay, let me hear what this guy is saying. Because back in the days, I've never really followed David Platt, but back in the days, I used to think that he was a solid reform. He was a solid reform, theologian and pastor. And when I heard that, he said, I, as a white pastor, am part of the problem. I was like, oh, really? he qualifies himself as a white pastor. I gotta listen to this thing. When I listened to the whole of it, and then he started talking about his experience when he was 5 years old, a black family moved into his neighborhood, and then everybody else that was part of the neighborhood, that was white, they moved out, and then based off that, and then that systemic racism, he formed an argument that was completely illogical to me. So here I am sitting down. I'm like, I've never been arrested. I've never been oppressed. My first job out of college was on the 22nd floor, right next to right by Wall Street in New York City. How am I oppressed?
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are some people that have had it, bad. But here I am, an immigrant guy. English is not even my first language. I got a scholarship to go to one of the top schools in New York City, and here I am sitting down. And then now my experience is gonna make me categorize my skin color, categorizes me by default as an oppressed person. I said that's completely untrue. That could not be any further from the truth. So I went through it, and then I started digging some more, and I'm like, what a lie. And when I put in the this whole oppression and social justice, and I got into the Gospel Coalition, and they had a whole MLK 50 conference, and it's all woke. It's all based off of social justice and critical race theory. All of it. I was so shocked. And I was so surprised. That's when I decided to make that first video. Your experience has no validity whatsoever. And in the way that the reason why I'm saying that, it's they take the worst experience, of a black person. Let's say, I'm a black person driving and I got arrested, or the police pulled me over, or whatever the case may be. They take that experience and then they generalize it.
Yeah.
This is what all black men are suffering in this country.
Right.
That's not true.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or even still, like it's tough to claim racism for anyone without knowledge of the fact of racism, because like I've heard stories before, like as I own self-storage facilities, and I've heard stories of tenants coming in and going like, "Oh yeah, this white cop pulled me over. He was racism." And I ask, what
Just because
made
you're
it
black
racist?
and you get pulled over by a cop, it
And
doesn't
they
mean
said
it was
it's
racism.
because he's white. I'm like, how does that follow that it's racist? You automatically assumed every deed the person did was hatred for you without actual proof of the hatred. And I go,
Systemic racism, Ryan. That proves it.
Well, once again, it begs the question, and it doesn't logically follow to your conclusion, which is a problem.
It doesn't.
We're ascribing
and
motive
what,
that might not be there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What of the opposite? I was driving 90 miles per hour, on a 60 mile per hour. Nobody, don't do that. That was really bad. 90 miles per hour on a 60 miles per hour, and a cop stopped me. Would you believe that I did not even get a ticket? He gave me a warning.
Yeah.
I spoke to him. It was a white cop, a black man driving 90 miles per hour in New Jersey, a state trooper.
First of all, what were you doing?
I was supposed to pick someone up at the Atlantic City airport, and I went to the Newark airport. When I called them, I said, I'm there. They said, "Where are you?" And they said, "I'm in Atlantic City."
Oh no.
And that's 4 hours, 2 to 3 hours away from New Jersey, 2 hours away from Newark.
Yeah.
So, I was speeding, and then I told him, explained the situation to him. I was not lying. Told him this is the reason why, and I told, really spoke to him, and that there was no shooting. There was nothing at all. If he had given me a ticket, I would not be mad, because that's what he was supposed to do. But he understood the situation. He was white and I was black, and none of that happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we got room for one more question. I know we could talk on this.
Oh
for
no,
quite
I
some
gotta
time.
get I gotta get one in.
This is such a good episode.
Yeah.
I gotta get one more in.
Do I get the last question?
No, because I want one more.
Well, I just had a small comment, I guess.
Okay, good.
Okay.
That can get one in.
and then
And then Steven.
Yeah, I just
And
had
then one more each.
a small comment on you were saying that on your YouTube page you don't get all the negativity because you're a black person versus if you were white, you could imagine like your comments being even worse.
Yeah.
I actually was, that kind of like confused me because I know of people like Candace Owens, who is a black Christian woman.
She's awesome.
I love Candace Owens. But then you have people like the Hodge twins. You have Justice Clarence Thomas. You have these black people that take
Officer
a different.
Tatum.
You have these black people that take a different stance. And critical race theory still goes after them for being having like these white ideologies.
Yeah, they're called Uncle Toms and Oreos and
Yeah.
What would be like your response to like somebody calling you racist for like standing up for like these different beliefs? Like how would you respond to that?
Yeah, so that's where I go back to their argument. I use their argument against them.
Yeah.
I would tell them, how could I be racist? Because based on your ideology, I cannot be racist because I am a black person. That's the argument I'm gonna. That's where it doesn't really work. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They tell you, if you're a black person, then you cannot be racist. Then okay, no problem. So I'm gonna use that against you. Then I'm gonna talk against your argument. And now, how can you tell me, for instance, what's his name? The guy who was the founder of TP USA, Turning Point USA.
Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk. All the time, he gets this on college campuses. Oh, you wouldn't understand. Look at you, a white guy,
They hate
this
Charlie
and that.
Kirk.
Yeah, it turns out the guy he's never been to college.
No.
He just studies and he applies himself and he creates something and he works hard.
And he's super smart.
He's super smart. He is where he is because of his hard work. So it literally obliterates the idea of work. It doesn't really matter what, Ryan or Mike, what you did to be where you are. You are where you are because you're white and because you're racist. That's all.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter if you spend so many nights studying, so many nights and, not having fun and not watching TV series, but you spent time, looking at data and analyzing and working late, waking up early. It discounts all of that. There's no hard work with critical race theory. There's nothing. It's just, you're white, you own everything, you're an oppressor. You're black, then you're an oppressed. It doesn't matter if you're Barack Obama. You're just an oppressed person. It doesn't matter if you're, one of the Obamas. You guys are all oppressed because you are black.
Yeah.
And
It's
that
like
to
what
me doesn't make any sense.
Oprah said that the other day. She's oppressed. I'm like, oh, billionaire. Okay, tell me about that.
well, one of the things that they say is because you're black, you would be more successful if it wasn't for the
that's
system.
literally my question.
So
I was going to give you.
You can't win.
Well, so that was what Steven just
close with that one.
said. My question is, and let me give you a little story. I came at storage. Someone came in the pay, and we've been helping this guy out for a very long time. African American guy, real nice, but man, he's been hitting life problems. So I'm like, okay, you know what? We're not going to throw you out in an auction. Just pay us next month. I'll take the late fees off. Trying to do everything I can to help a lot of people because, like, first of all, I don't want your garbage. I want your money because that's how a business makes money. I don't want your sofa that's 15 years old. And he came in and he's like, just to let you know, like, you're white. I shouldn't be paying you this. If slavery never happened, I probably would be owning this facility. And so here's I'm dead serious. Here's my objection I want you to respond to, because I think there's another objection. Not only begging the question is foundational to critical race theory. Another objection to this whole sort of you should stand in as a representation is they are making counterfactual claims that no one is in a position to make. And what I mean, a counterfactual is a claim like if then in the subjunctive conditional, meaning if I were this case, then this would be the case. And there is no one in any position to say if this never were the case 100 so years ago, then I would have been this. Because all I have to do is make another counterfactual against that. How do you know you would even be here
It's ethnic
to make this
Gnosticism.
claim?
They know
and
better
so
than you.
I think the fact these counterfactuals are being presented, only God can have knowledge of these counterfactuals.
Correct.
So to me, to make these counterfactuals completely, in my mind, I kind of like you're making an irrational claim because how can you make such claims to and be in a position to do
It's
such
like
a thing?
claiming to know like what would have happened if
If this
little
were the
choice-
case, yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
like time travel movies. It's like, oh, if I go back and change this little tiny thing, oh, then all of this would have happened, but it never actually ends up.
Yeah,
working
because
out
I
that
told
way.
the guy, I'm like, that may be true. I go, you also may not be here. Which one's right? And he goes, well, I don't know. I go, okay, then you can't make that counterfactual claim.
And he would say, I don't know. And you'll see that most people who make these claims, they really don't. A lot of them really don't have a mind of their own.
Mhm.
A lot of them really don't have a mind of their own to think logically, to even think critically about anything. He heard it somewhere. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
he heard it somewhere, and then he just regurgitated what he heard,
Mhm.
back to you. Doesn't question it, no filter whatsoever.
Right.
He just hears it. Okay, that's true, and I'm just gonna say that. And that to me is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, because it blew my mind. I'm like, man, who? Because I'm sure you've heard that before, where it's like, if slavery never happened, I would have been in this position. And
Yeah.
I go, I don't know how you make those claims.
It's there's these shows on TV, and all you hear is it's all about race.
Yeah.
Blackish, for instance, popular TV show.
Mhm.
Just based on a name, it's about race. And if
Yeah.
you were to catch a few minutes of them, it's all about race. There's another show called Dear White People.
Oh, that was
All
bad.
critical race theory, just for the sake of the argument. You could just sit down and just like watch one episode. You'll see, these black folks, sitting either on a couch, and then there's one white lady or one white man that the cross examining, and then all goes back to if then, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And it's funny too, in these shows, they'll show you that the white person would try and think through it with them logically, and then the answer will always be this if then, this kind of like subjective, this alternate reality type of response he'll get. And you just have to comply because you're white and you're racist, and by default, and that's how it is.
Yeah.
Well, John, thank you for being our guest on the podcast. If
Fantastic,
our
yeah.
listeners want to find out more about you and the work you're doing, where's the best place for them to go?
They can go on YouTube and YouTube The Gospel of Christ. And I think there's another channel called that, but I should be.
Yours is the better one.
Yeah.
Just look for the one with almost 96,000 subscribers.
Yes. They can go on there, and I try and diversify the content and not just make it race every time. It could get tiring, and every now and then I'll just make a series. I'll post a video on Monday, on Wednesday, and Friday. It'll be all in a culminating fashion about critical CRT. Every now and then I'll do it to just give people a break about it all, but it's ridiculous. And some people still now, they're oblivious to the CRT. Some people, I see comments, oh, I've never knew that one of the last videos I posted is the cover up of the convention that
The Southern
happened.
Baptist Convention.
The convention,
yeah.
the cover up. It was that video that was, a lot of people never knew what happened, and they never knew anything about critical race theory. And it's funny too, because most of the people back in 2019 at the convention knew nothing about critical race theory whatsoever. Right. So it's The Gospel of Christ, and the channel has 95, going to 96,000 subscribers. That's one way they could find me. And give me a like, and I'll appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. We also want to let you know that after expenses, we give money to like-minded nonprofits who share our convictions and our values. So every time you like and subscribe, you are helping further the kingdom of God in the Buffalo region. We also want you to know that you could find us on Facebook and Instagram at the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. Also, you could email us with questions and future episode suggestions at thecaffeinatedchristian706@gmail.com. That's thecaffeinatedchristian706@gmail.com. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
John Henry, right? Just okay.
Correct.
Yeah, trust me, I've mispronounced things wrong.
It's the Buffalo accent.
Yeah.
It's Juan and Ray.
Jahan.
All right, guys, you ready?
Yeah.